The ancient Romans had werewolves, and it is possible that the Romans invented the concept of the werewolf we have today. The Versipellis, a creature of ancient Roman mythology, represents one of the earliest documented concepts of shape-shifting beings in Western literature. The term itself, derived from Latin versare, to turn, and pellis, skin, literally means turn skin or skin changer, providing insight into how the Romans conceptualized these mysterious entities. The physical description of the Versipellis varied throughout Roman accounts, but most sources depicted them as beings capable of transforming between human and wolf forms. Unlike the violent transformations often portrayed in modern media, ancient accounts described their metamorphosis as a fluid, natural process, more akin to removing and donning a new skin than the bone-breaking transformations popularized by contemporary werewolf tales. In human form, they were said to appear completely normal, though some accounts suggested they could be identified by their unusual pallor and perpetually tired appearance. The Versipellis is typically described as a hybrid of man and wolf, embodying the most fearsome traits of both. In its transformed state, it is often depicted as retaining a humanoid frame but with elongated limbs, sharp claws, and a snout filled with razor-sharp teeth. Its eyes are frequently described as glowing, either red, green, or yellow, evoking an otherworldly menace. The creature's fur is said to be coarse and dark, blending into the shadows of the night, while its movements retain a disturbing mix of human agility and animalistic ferocity. Unlike a natural wolf, the Versipellis is portrayed as unnaturally large and terrifying, a predator designed to evoke fear. In some versions of the myth, the transformation is incomplete, leaving behind unsettling traces of humanity, such as human hands or a partially human face, further emphasizing the creature's unnatural nature. Roman writers attributed complex behaviors to these creatures. Unlike mindless beasts, Versipellis retained their human intelligence during transformation, and were often portrayed as strategic hunters. They were believed to operate in solitude rather than packs, and numerous accounts describe them as preferring to avoid human settlements unless driven by necessity. The creatures were said to be most active during the full moon, a belief that would later become firmly embedded in werewolf mythology. Behaviorally, the Versipellis is often associated with violence and a loss of moral control. In most traditions, the transformation into a wolf brings with it a release of base instincts, including an insatiable hunger for flesh and blood. The creature is typically depicted as a nocturnal predator, stalking its prey under the cover of darkness. This behavior mirrors humanity's ancient fear of the night, when predators lurked beyond the safety of firelight. However, some stories present the Versipellis as a tragic figure, cursed to transform against its will and left to grapple with the guilt of its actions once it returns to human form. This duality of the creature, as both predator and victim, has made it a compelling figure in folklore and fiction alike. The most significant Roman texts that mention the Versipellis are Petronius's Satyricon and Pliny the Elder's Natural History, Naturalis Historia. In the Satyricon, there is a specific tale told by the character Niceros about a soldier who transforms into a wolf. Pliny's account in Book 8 of Natural History discusses the belief in Versipellis in connection with lycanthropy, though he expresses skepticism about such transformations. In Petronius's Satyricon, the soldier-turned-wolf story is told with fear and awe, but not moral condemnation. The transformed soldier is described as behaving like a wolf, attacking livestock, but retains human intelligence and later returns to human form. The story is presented more as a supernatural occurrence than a moral tale. Pliny the Elder, while skeptical of such transformations, discusses them in relatively neutral terms as a reported phenomenon rather than as evil entities. The behavior attributed to them was primarily that of wolves, hunting and avoiding human settlements, rather than deliberately malicious actions against humans. This neutral stance contrasts sharply with later medieval Christian interpretations, which reframed shapeshifters as inherently evil and associated with demonic pacts. The Roman view appears to have been more complex, seeing these transformations as sometimes involuntary or even as divine punishment, rather than the result of evil intent. During the European Middle Ages, the myth took on a darker tone, fueled by the rise of Christianity. The idea of the werewolf became associated with witchcraft and demonic possession, leading to widespread fear and persecution. People accused of being werewolves were often subjected to brutal trials and executions, much like those accused of witchcraft. In the modern era, the Versipellis has shed much of its connection to superstition and has instead become a symbol of inner conflict, repression, and transformation, reflecting the psychological concerns of contemporary society. The Greek influence on Roman werewolf beliefs is notable, particularly through the story of King Lycaon of Arcadia, though the direct connection to the Versipellis concept isn't entirely clear. The Greek lycanthropy myth appears most prominently in Ovid's Metamorphoses, though Ovid was Roman, and wrote this after adapting earlier Greek sources. In the Greek tradition, King Lycaon was transformed into a wolf by Zeus as punishment for serving human flesh at a banquet. This established several important concepts that influenced both Greek and Roman werewolf beliefs. Transformation as divine punishment, the connection between werewolves and cannibalism, and the retention of human consciousness in wolf form. The Greeks also had the cult of Zeus Lycaios, centered in Arcadia, which included legends of ritual cannibalism and werewolf transformations. However, the Versipellis appears to have some distinct characteristics from Greek lycanthropes. The Greek traditions typically emphasized permanent transformation as punishment, while Roman accounts include temporary, recurring transformations. Interestingly, while we can trace clear Greek influence on Roman mythology in many areas, the Versipellis concept seems to have some unique elements that don't directly parallel Greek predecessors. This suggests that while Greek werewolf myths certainly influenced Roman beliefs, the Versipellis may represent a partly independent development in Roman folklore. The historical record is unfortunately insufficient to definitively establish the extent of Greek influence on this specific aspect of Roman supernatural beliefs. The evolution of belief in the Versipellis reflects changing social attitudes throughout history. In ancient Rome, they were initially viewed as cursed humans, transformed as punishment by the gods. This belief gradually shifted during the Middle Ages, when Christian influence recast them as willing servants of Satan who had traded their humanity for power. By the Renaissance period, the distinct concept of the Versipellis had largely merged with broader European werewolf mythology, though some regional variations preserved elements of the original Roman beliefs. The Versipellis had several distinctive characteristics that set it apart from shapeshifters in other ancient cultures, though there are also some interesting parallels. Unlike Norse shapeshifters such as berserkers and the followers of Odin who were believed to channel animal spirits while remaining physically human, or the Hamramr who could project their spirits into animal forms, the Versipellis underwent a complete physical transformation. This physical change was more similar to the Greek tradition of complete metamorphosis, seen in myths like Zeus's transformations. The Versipellis differs from Celtic shapeshifters, who were often associated with salmon, seals, or birds rather than wolves, and whose transformations were frequently tied to specific locations like wells or the sea. Celtic shapeshifters also often had their transformations linked to curses or enchantments that had specific conditions for breaking them. In contrast to Native American skinwalker traditions, where the transformation was typically viewed as a result of specific shamanic practices or ritualistic knowledge, the Versipellis transformation appears to have been viewed more as an inherent condition or divine punishment, rather than a learned skill. The Versipellis also differs from ancient Middle Eastern traditions of shapeshifters, such as those found in Mesopotamian mythology, where transformations were often associated with divine beings or demons rather than mortals. The Mesopotamian stories typically featured gods transforming humans as punishment, rather than humans who could transform themselves. A unique aspect of the Versipellis was its retention of human intelligence during transformation. While many other cultural traditions depicted shapeshifters as taking on the full nature of their animal form, the Roman accounts specifically note that the Versipellis maintained human consciousness and reasoning abilities while in wolf form. The influence of the Versipellis on popular culture extends far beyond its historical origins. While modern audiences might not recognize the name, the creature's core characteristics have shaped werewolf depictions in literature, film, and television. The concept of a thinking, conscious being trapped between human and wolf forms, rather than a mindless beast, can be traced directly to Versipellis lore. This interpretation has influenced works ranging from classic literature like Ovid's Metamorphoses to contemporary productions, though modern adaptations typically employ the more familiar term werewolf, rather than the original Latin name. The impact of the Versipellis on popular culture cannot be overstated. From literature to film, the werewolf has become a staple of horror and fantasy genres. Classic works like The Wolfman, 1941, introduced the modern archetype of the tragic werewolf, cursed to transform under the full moon. In more recent years, franchises such as Harry Potter and Twilight have reimagined the werewolf as a complex character, capable of love and loyalty despite its monstrous nature. Television series like Teen Wolf have further explored the creature, blending traditional folklore with contemporary themes of identity and belonging. Beyond entertainment, the Versipellis has influenced broader cultural discussions about humanity's relationship with nature, the duality of human behavior, and the fear of losing control over oneself. In conclusion, the Versipellis represents a crucial link in the evolution of shapeshifter mythology, bridging ancient Roman beliefs with modern werewolf lore. While the original term has faded from common usage, its influence persists in how we conceptualize and portray shape-shifting beings in contemporary media. The creature's legacy demonstrates how ancient myths can evolve and remain relevant across millennia, adapting to changing cultural contexts while retaining their fundamental ability to captivate human imagination.